Hello, everyone, and good evening. Well, it's good evening by my time because I'm in West African time. And over here, it is 3 minutes past 5. So sorry, we're starting a bit late. My name is Dr. Glory Edozian, and I'm a LinkedIn visibility and thought leadership expert. What I do is I help female executives position for top leadership roles, including board roles. And I have two amazing women here with me who have actually gone through my signature program, the LinkedIn Visibility and Content Strategy program. And why this session is really important because they are thought leaders in their own right. And even though they are in, would I say similar? So the both of them are in sort of technical industries, but they also have another similarity, which is that as part of their thought leadership and leadership journey, they have actually become trusted advisors to C-suite executives. And so today we're going to really be examining how do women become trusted advisors, because it's this trusted advisory role that helps you sort of have that sort of strategic mindset that can fundamentally position you for boards as you carry on that journey. So we'll be asking them questions around how they develop those skills, how they communicate with C-suite leaders, and just general questions around thought leadership, visibility, and of course around their technical expertise as well. But before I introduce them, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us. And if you could introduce yourself as well. So please put your name or whatever city you're joining us in the chat, and I'll be sure to introduce you. It doesn't matter what time you're joining us, if you're 5 minutes late or you join 30 minutes later, please just introduce yourself so we know who's watching. Okay, so the first person that I'm going to be introducing on my list today is the very lovely Wanda Serkowska. I'm terrible, Wanda.
Perfect. No. This is perfect. Glory.
Okay.
Thank you.
She is a senior account executive for Equinix. And then we have Jumoke Olaiya, who is a third-party risk, Penn State, and vulnerability assessment vendor coordination consultant. A bit of a mouthful as well. But two of them, I'm going to be asking you, like, many of people are joining this from all over the world, and we are wondering, what do those job titles mean? So, Jimmy, why don't you just tell us a bit about your career and what you do?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Gloria. Hi, everyone. So I'm Jumoke Olaiya. Presently, I'm third-party risk vulnerability assessment / vendor coordinator consultant for National Grid. So I oversee a global team, UK, US, where I manage third-party vendors, including those from Fortune 500 companies. And also I manage vendors, internal testers as well. So what I do is manage the activities around penetration test. So I would call them what we regard as ethical hackers, where National Grid will get their services to check vulnerability or threats within our system, because National Grid is involved with distribution of energy, which we all know for UK and both US. So it's a critical sector where you cannot afford for power to go off, power cuts. There are a lot of industries that would be affected with that. So my responsibility is to make sure that all our critical national infrastructures, our assets, substations, data center, and so on, the systems are tested. We carry out regular vulnerability scans, report is done and shared with senior management. Any risk that is being envisaged is escalated as quickly as possible, and also make sure that I'm being proactive as well to provide solution for the organization through my team.
Fantastic. Very cutting edge stuff and very necessary. Really interested to hear your views here today. Thanks, Jumi. Wanda, what about you? Can you just tell us briefly about yourself and what you do?
Thank you, Glory. My name is Wanda Serkowska, as you said. I'm based out of Warsaw in Poland. And I work at the moment for Equinix in sales team in EMEA network sales. I take care of network service providers. Equinix has data centers in 230 countries. So I'm selling different digital products in space and power as well. And personally, I'm interested in the entire ecosystem of transport, of data centers, subsea cables, and how the whole internet traffic overflows within the ecosystem.
Wow. So both of you hold really critical roles in the existence and sort of ecosystem of your organization. Thank you for coming here today. So my first question is to you, Jumi, and it's really around, you have expertise as a third party risk and vulnerability assessment leader, as it were. Um, what role has visibility played in earning you the trust of C-suite executives in your industry?
Thanks, Dr. Gray. I can't overemphasize visibility. And one thing that I've realized, especially around coming for your program, is really exposed me to having contact with industry, because I'm now based on my post and some of the things that I share, regarded as a thought leader. And it's also connected me with industry, giants such as, CISOs, which I naturally or normally wouldn't have come in contact with. So I've seen them add me, I've seen them contact me on LinkedIn, chat with me, send me messages, and also contribute to my post as well. So LinkedIn has actually, so I can, picture this as being in the back, of a large crowd and trying to, shout, but nobody's hearing your voice. But what LinkedIn visibility has done for me is to push me from the back to the front, for people to say, she's on stage, let's listen to what she's got to say. So I can't overemphasize it. And it's also giving me some ideas that I'm able to also profile to my senior management in my workplace as well, based on my research and things that I've shared.
Amazing. So that visibility using LinkedIn, sharing your ideas is helping you to bring cross networking, right, across various industries. But I love that example you gave as, at the back of the room and trying to shout and nobody's hearing you, and now all of a sudden, I think that's such a vivid example. So thank you for sharing that, Jimmy. Wanda, I'm curious about yourself and around thought leadership. Like when I look at the kind of content you've been sharing, that established you as a thought leader in your industry, would you say?
Yeah, so I think ultimately, everyone is busy and everyone wants to get value from the, whether this is content or anything that they're hearing from other people. And I think C-suite leaders, executives are even busier. So, I think the ultimate goal is to bring something new. It's, our own personal experience and angle, and kind of, confronted with facts, but also things that are happening, trends. And I think that's also something that interests me personally as well. So I think that's definitely something. I think there are, obviously we all learning. There are things that I know better and things that I'm still learning about, but the platform is helping us all, I think, to learn as well and to connect with other players that, help us open ourselves up to them. Yeah.
I really like that example of LinkedIn being not just a place for thought leadership, sharing your expertise, but also learning from others as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship, right? So it's a two-way street. But I'll just take a break and speak to some people in the chat. So hi Chiogo. Chiogo is asking, the session is recorded. Yes, it is recorded. And we're also streaming live on YouTube as well. So you can watch the content back here on LinkedIn or go to YouTube. Acha is joining us from Switzerland. Hi Acha. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to ask a question if you have any questions to the lovely ladies. Chiamba is saying, okay, I'm guessing he's responding to the recording comment. Okay, if you're just joining us, please, we're talking to these two amazing leaders in technology, different technology sectors, and we're talking about how to become a trusted advisor to C-suite executives, strategies for female leaders. So please, if you have any questions, if you have any aha moments, if you're just joining us, use the chat, tell us where you're joining us from, tell us your name, your city, and ask questions. So Jumi and Wanda, and I'll start with Wanda first, but I'm going to ask both of you the same question. And it's really around the word trust. How do you build the trust of C-level leaders?
I think for me, and this is what I noticed, a while ago when I was still working at Ericsson and I was having a lot of interactions with C-suite leaders, it's kind of not to be selling all the time, every time, and kind of, listen to them and build that trust. So, not asking for things before you give yourself something, because, they're expecting that everyone wants something that, and I think, coming into a meeting and giving them information about, okay, this is what someone else is doing, this is what we're doing, and might be interesting for you. What about this product? What about this solution? And kind of also as well, I think challenging them a little bit, that kind of builds trust because it's very, human to human. It's kind of authentic as well to say, okay, challenging someone that maybe they haven't thought of about something. I think that definitely were things that would work or worked for me.
I think that's such a valid point, Wanda, because really at that level, people tend to agree with you or to want to curry favor. So being that person that is sharing a perspective that is challenging that status quo, but also seeing the synergies and bringing information to the table can certainly start to build that trust factor in that relationship. Jimmy, what about you? What are some of the trust strategies that you use?
Yeah. Okay. I think one thing, or so many things, but some of the things that I realized has really helped me is emotional intelligence. So, building relationship and trust with C-suite leaders comes with a lot of emotional intelligence, being pragmatic, being proactive, and based on the areas that I've worked, especially around risk and compliance, having being able to envisage risk and escalating it on time, that tends to trigger their interest in you. And one other thing is being consistent. Each time when your name is being spoken, even in the room that you are not in, the same thing is being spoken about you by different leaders. That tends to build a lot of trust. I will cite an instance where I had a discussion with one of my managers, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to have a discussion with a senior person." And while she was on the call to the person, she said, "Oh, I'd like to speak about Jumi." And the person said, "Oh, interesting. Somebody just spoke about Jumi to me now." So she came back to say, "Oh, it was such coincidence," and things like that. So sometimes you allow your work to speak for you, even when you are not there. And that helps to trigger that relationship and interest in you. And then now being pragmatic, being emotionally intelligent. So like Wanda said, not just trying to curry their favor, but trying to steer them, having intelligent discussions with them as well. Things that is out of what you actually do, looking at other areas, building your interest and discussing that tends to actually build. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Sorry, I'm having power challenges here, but at least hopefully you can hear me. So
Yeah.
I really like that, Jimmy, and this idea of emotional intelligence. I find that many times, because it's not necessarily something that's taught in school, right? It's not the hard technical bits, so it's often overlooked. But it's almost like the butter in between relationships, right? It's what makes things go smoother. It's really what builds that relationship, as it were. But I think you also touched on something that's quite key, and that is the idea of actually having stellar work. So, and letting people know what you're doing, so that when those C-level executives are discussing, they can say, "Oh, it was Jimmy that gave me this information. Oh, it was Jimmy that gave me this information. It was one that that kind of thing." So it definitely does help to build stability as well. So I'm just going to go to the chat. We have some questions. Shaluhu, who is joining from Bahrain, says, "I've been hearing C-suite nowadays. What differentiates C-suite leaders from other leaders in the game?" I'm going to allow either Jimmy or Wanda, who would like to take that question. What differentiates C-suite leaders from other leaders in the
Can
game?
I have a try?
Go ahead, Wanda.
So I think, and this is what I noticed myself. I think a CEO thinks about the company as an entrepreneur a little bit. Like, I own this company, and they kind of have this high, very view from helicopter view, and see things or should see things from a really, far distance. So not being looking at their own, patch, whether you're a CTO or COO, but looking at this as if this is your company. Like you own it, you build it. So there is this massive responsibility, and it's not you're just an employee or you're executive and you're managing a team. I think, a good CEO that definitely has that. So in my opinion, I don't know, Jimmy, what do you think?
Jimmy, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree because they usually, have an overview, helicopter view, like Wanda said, about organization, and they are focused also about delivering, making sure that business goals is being delivered through various teams and units. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely that whole bird's eye focus and that strategic overview it's really key for C-suite leaders. So Shalu, I hope that answered your question. And then we have another really interesting question here from Anu. Anu said, "Hi everyone, my name is Anu. I work as a legal counsel in the renewable energy sector in the UK, across Europe, working on solar plants, wind farms, and battery storage. I'm working in a male-dominated field and also a deeply technical industry. How best can you scale your technical knowledge?" Such an interesting question. "And how best do you provide information in a concise manner?" This is actually going to be my next question. "In a concise manner that easily gets the attention of C-suites." So this idea of high-level strategic communication that attracts attention. So it's two questions. The first is scaling technical expertise, and then the second bit is communication that gets attention. Either of you can take this one.
Okay, I'll have
Go now first.
All right. Okay, so I'll take the first one around working in a male-dominated industry. So for me, I have different backgrounds. So I have banking, IT project management, and then cybersecurity. But I'll say for the very first time, when I joined the team, I was the only female. And then I think a year or two into the role, then another female was recruited in the US. So presently, I'm the only female in the UK team. So what I realized is that, I think it depends on the organization, the sector, as well as the team that you work in. For me, it's been quite interesting. Everybody has been fantastic. I don't struggle to present my views, and they are very, very big on inclusion and diversity. And I agree that it's not all organizations that are like that. So it might be different. But what I usually would do is when I go into meetings, I make sure I prepare before I go into meetings. And if there's anything that has been discussed that I'm not really I'm new to, I tend to do my research. And I also have a group, or I would say allies, that I lean on to ask questions. And from time to time, I've taken some of them as mentors. I work with a particular person that left the organization, but I still keep close contact with him, and he gives me advice on the type of exams, training that I can go for and things like that. So when others are also sharing their success around certification, I also have certifications that I share with them. So everybody kind of respects you. Even though I'm not really like a technical person, but I tend to understand their language. And sometimes I realize that some of them actually struggle to communicate. So I try to be like the middleman between the business and the technical guys. So I try to make sure that I communicate to the business in a simplified form. And when I'm asking questions with the technical guys, I try to use their terms as well, just to blend in. But I make sure that I build my technical expertise, asking questions. And if there's an area that I struggle with, I just go on the on the teams, the company's teams page. I search for those job designations. I reach out to them. I book one-to-one sessions with them, and I ask them questions. I do that a lot. People in the US, UK, I do that a lot. I book in maybe 30 minutes. I can do there was a particular person I did about for almost 3 weeks. I was doing sessions with the person, just asking questions. So I do that a lot, and that has really helped me to improve on my job and to also, showcase what I know among my team members.
Amazing, Jimmy. I think that's such a proactive approach of saying, okay, identifying sort of key technical players, around areas where you need to develop or learn more about, and booking one-on-one time, but also staying in touch with people. And so they are able to tell you, oh, this is a learning gap, or this is where you should go. Wanda, what's been your experience?
On scaling technical knowledge, you mean, or the second part of the question?
Either.
I think, in my sector, technology, there's so much knowledge that is so, you kind of have to be choosing. So what I tend to do, and I've done it, I would say a lot this year, maybe less last year, and I'm kind of shocked why I didn't, is kind of go after things that I don't know and are exciting me, like passionate about. And you kind of, there's not everything that I'm interested in technology, or not everything today. So this month or this week, I'm trying to find out more, listening to podcasts, and actually, creating and preparing my own posts. It requires me to structure some knowledge and get more knowledgeable. It kind of helps me because it's more structured, and I can't know everything, and there's just too many things, right?
Yeah. I like that. I like that. So letting sort of your passion and your interest through your learning and development goals. That makes a lot of sense. I know. I hope we've been able to cover at least the first part of your question. What about the idea around communication? How do you provide concise information and to get attention of the C-suite? Wanda, maybe you will start and go to you.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't. It's kind of work in progress for me. I think I'm really trying on that. I'm trying to be the more concise, the biggest impact. So what I've been trying to do in discussions or in emails myself is to kind of put the most important part first, like the most impactful. And also I think as women, maybe we kind of tend to write a lot or communicate facts, but actually what management and executives are interested in is impact, like what that means. So what, based on the facts. So I think really that is, and and it depends. Sometimes I'm writing something, I'm rewriting, and I'm like, is the most important sentence the first one? And I'm just rewriting it because it's not obvious as we're trying to create some communication. So yeah, definitely that is very important. Yeah.
Amazing. Jimmy, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'll talk in the aspect of presentation of reports. So previously, before now, usually reports that I do comes in Excel. So it could have different types of reports, and it was quite overwhelming. So fortunately, there's a Power BI team. So I noticed that Power BI was something that C-suite executives were very, very keen on, because you could send over just a pager and it has all the information and facts that is required. So that was one of the things that as a team we started exploring. We had to get the team to do those reports, and then I do sessions with them on exactly the type of reports that I would like to send over to senior management. And that has helped, because it would just be a one pager and all the information needed. And sometimes when questions comes back, I'll go back and refine that and do that myself and just send it. So that has helped in a way to just give them exactly what they want, rather than presenting so many reports that might not be necessary.
I think what helped me in my 9 to 5 time was, first of all, understanding the information that I was relaying. I think so many times we are trying to convey so many things that we ourselves have not gotten a chance to sit down and synthesize what does this information really mean. So we're just regurgitating what we've heard. So first of all, understanding the information and understanding the impact on different sides of the business. Another thing that I found was very useful for me was understanding for each executive what concerns them. So if I'm talking to the chief legal officer, I'm not talking profit and loss. I'm talking about governance issues. I'm talking about potential risk, potential issues with clients around our contracting and things like that. If I'm talking to the CFO, I'm talking about my ring fence funding that I've been given and making sure that my POs are coming out on time and I'm not losing money on my projects and things like that. When I'm talking to the CEO, I'm speaking about profit and loss. And I'm talking about issues that can affect our bottom line, because that's really what he cares about. Gloria, are we making money? What's affecting us? Why is our profit going to be down? And so understanding what each person, what each C-level executive is facing and what their reporting requirements are and how I feed into that usually helps me to understand what they need to know. right? So hopefully, and these three perspectives inside what we've said, you will find you'll find pockets of information that'll be useful to you. Okay, so and I think both of you have touched on this a bit, but I want us to go deeper. And we often hear around things around biases and challenges of women in tech sectors. So, what sort of challenges have you faced working with senior leaders? As it could be as a woman, general challenges in terms of your learning and development.
Yeah, so if I may start, so I think ultimately, we always hear that from different reports or surveys that we like people that are like us, or we connect with people that look like us or are like us. So when there are more men, they tend to gravitate to men, and exactly the same looking, even within countries and regions. So I think that is something we kind of have to navigate, that, and that will shift, and that is improving, I think. But ultimately, that it's not like we have to prove our value, but we have to be a bit more intentional. We have to be a bit more intentional because we're not part of the boys' club, and kind of build our own club. Maybe, I think women help one another in tech a lot, and there are a lot of initiatives, a lot of conferences. So I think we are all quite intentional because we see how this is a reality still. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Wanda. Jimmy, what is your perspective?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Wanda, and I'll also say that be yourself and try to look for things that you can, add in value. I'll use myself as an example. Being the only female, I try to look at things that guys will naturally not think of. For example, someone getting married, they don't think about gifts or anything like that, or maybe there's a celebration, nobody's bothered. So I go out of my way to make sure that everybody's involved in getting something for who is getting married, or if there's any celebration. I just try to look for things that naturally guys wouldn't do. So in a way, they recognize that, okay, yeah, you are bringing that value. But at the same time, I don't try to be what I am not. So I try to be myself, but I make sure that I bring as much value. And I try to look at things that maybe there are gaps in, and I try to provide that solution. I think around it and bring up suggestion. Yes, there would be subtle, pushback here and there. Maybe not necessarily from your immediate team. It could be from some other areas. But there will always be, based on what you do, and just like Wanda said as well, you might not be in all their clubs, or go for pubs when they catch up and all that. You might not be there all the time, but the value you bring would always, resonate with everyone to say, oh yeah, Jimmy does this, and this is what Jimmy does, and nobody else is able to do that. So that's what I try to do most times.
Amazing, amazing. That makes a lot of sense. So, guys, if you're still listening, I'm sure you are. We're talking about becoming a trusted advisor to the C-suite executives, strategies for female leaders, and we have two powerful women in tech, and they are sharing their expertise and their journeys. So, if you're just joining us, please feel free to put your name and what city you're joining us from in the chat and ask your questions. We've had some amazing questions that have sparked great conversation so far. So please feel free to add your perspective as well as your questions. So I want to talk a bit around gaining influence. And this is kind of like based on what both of you have said around the boys club, sometimes not being included for whatever reason, or you just not being able to participate at that level. So how can in building that that relationship with C-suite leaders, and you don't have the time to go to the pub like you say, you don't, or you don't play golf, you don't like golf and things, how do you gain influence in the rooms, in those meetings? How do you gain influence? And Jimmy, you said something about if you're not able to do something, speaking to allies. How do you build allies, and how has that helped to gain influence? So maybe I'll start with Jimmy and I'll come to Wanda.
Yes, okay, building allies. What I try to do is I reach out to people, I introduce myself, and I ask if I can have maybe a few minutes of their time to just have some discussions. And from there, I realized that. And one other thing as well is based on past experience of working with an area, and I'm able to deliver for example, I mentioned that I work with pen testers, so I work with external vendors. So when a request comes in and I'm able to help them, not just only to meet expectation, but to exceed expectation, that is like I'm already building, I'm already scoring a point with that project team. So if I approach the leader or the manager on that team, and I say, oh, can I have a few minutes of your time, and I discuss with them, they are willing and open to accept whatever I'm putting forward, or whatever discussion I would like to have. And that has helped as well, because I realized there was a time I was trying to get some information in an area, and I spoke to someone, and I'd actually forgotten that I'd reached out to the person's manager. The person kept calling me back to say, have you now gotten what you wanted? Because we've had experience of working together, and he was quite impressed with the way the project was delivered. So that has helped me to build allies in areas that I don't necessarily work, or I don't have a working relationship very often, but because of past experiences with them, I can always reach out to them when I need anything, and I'll get what I want.
Mm. I love that, Jimmy. I'm going to come back to you on that. I'm going to let Wanda add her, but I wanted to ask this so you can start thinking about it. Sometimes you have to deal with difficult stakeholders, right? And I know that you've mentioned this idea of reaching out to people and having, but sometimes that initial conversation or conversations can be tough. So we're going to come back and talk about difficult stakeholders, and especially when you now have to you're in charge of the project and you have to report to a C-level executive, but then there are difficult stakeholders on the ground that are just making things really difficult. So I'll come back to you, Jimmy. Wanda, do you want to talk a bit about influence and allyship?
Yeah, so building allies. I think one of the things that is crucial is kind of reading the room, and that doesn't have to be the real room. It could be the online room. Like, what is, you mentioned that, Glory, what is important to whom? Because you kind of feeling the dynamics, and I wouldn't say the power games always, but kind of what is worth fighting for, and I think that's one of the things that is important, and I think in general women are good at it, feeling the room and reading things. Another thing that I was just thinking of when Jimmy was talking, I think what is necessary, and it's maybe not so easy, not so intuitive, is reaching out for feedback, reaching out to ask questions, have these kind of informal chats or even interviews, having, I think it's called jump a lever or something like this, interview with the manager of your manager. I think, whether this is within the company you're working for a customer or someone else completely outside, I think it builds this kind of also ability to ask for feedback, to ask for how can I do with this better, or can you tell me, I think this is something that builds us and also gives us this confidence that we're doing the right thing, and kind of lets us go higher up and fight for our things in kind of stronger way.
I love the idea about reading the room, right? And I think it requires, and it goes back to what Jimmy said earlier about that emotional intelligence, that's emotional
Exactly.
quotient, and also self-awareness and knowing yourself and understanding what the response is, and also, like you said, am I really going to kill myself on this particular hill today, right? Or am I just going to say, okay, I'm going to walk away with a bloodied nose on this occasion, right? And it's all about those checks and balances, right? There's no one answer fits all, but like you say, it's about reading the room and understanding where, okay, I'm going to acquiesce on this occasion, or no, I'm going to stand my ground on this occasion. So thanks for that, Wanda. Jimmy, I'm coming to you now on difficult stakeholders.
Well, I'll say due to different sectors that I've worked, and organizations as well, there's something that my company is really, really big on, anti-bullying behaviors and things like that. So that has really helped, people who naturally will pass as bullies to step down a little bit. But that still does not erode the fact that you would have difficult stakeholders, which I've encountered over the years. And one thing you mentioned and Wanda also mentioned is I weigh things. So when I'm working with a difficult stakeholder, depending on the situation, I wait whether it's something I really want to like dwell
Mm.
on, or I just don't get bothered about it. I've had instances where other people will approach me to say, oh, this person is extremely difficult to work with. And I've also seen instances where leaders, where their subordinates are afraid of them. They don't want to have anything to do with them, or they are scared of stepping on their toes. And I've seen such individual, behave in such ways that I just tend to ignore, and they actually would come back to apologize without me having to pick it up because they noticed that, they weren't being professional. So one thing I've realized is that at the same time as well, some can be difficult not because they want to be a bully, but because they are quite for example, for technical, they are quite knowledgeable and they tend to see everybody as less. And so, not seeing them as bullies, but rather trying to learn from their wealth of knowledge. I've had
Mm.
instances where I have to book session to say, oh, I heard you say XYZ, and these are my questions. What do you think about it? And I realize that they tend to now develop soft spots for me because I don't see them the way others see them. And I've had instances where, it's outright, they are being, outrightly unprofessional. I walk away sometimes. I don't. And if there's the need for me to escalate, I do that, but it's quite rare. So I just try to be as professional as possible and I weigh the options. Do I really want to dwell on this? Or do I just want to get the work done and move on? So
Yeah,
yeah.
get the work done. Amazing, Jimmy. Amazing. You are right that sometimes it could be personality clashes, it could be assumptions. Sometimes you walk into a situation that has existed prior to you even being in that room. You have to navigate
Yeah.
what that jungle is, right? And then so there are different nuances, political nuances that happen in the corporate world, and you just have to understand how to navigate those. Wanda, what about you?
I think Jumi summed it up really well. One of the thing I think is important is to see why someone is doing something. The kind of goes back to what is important to whom. To kind of see it not as a negative thing, but what makes them tick or what is important to them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, Wanda. If you guys, we're wrapping up now. I literally have two questions left. So if you're just joining us, we are discussing with Wanda and Jumi on how to become a trusted advisor to C-suite leaders. But really, our conversation has meandered around women in tech and all as well. So it's been quite an interesting conversation. So we talked about building trust, but how do you break trust? What are some of the things that you've seen that people, inadvertently do that breaks trust with C-level executives that we should definitely be avoiding? Um, Either of you can take that.
Yeah, this is difficult. I mean, maybe not taking into consideration the subtleties of who needs what is important to whom. I think that's something that definitely is can have a negative effect. Also, not listening and kind of pushing, the agenda that we have, whether this is we're a supplier or something. So I think that's something probably to think of as well. The two things I can think of now.
Mm. I think that's really key. The second thing you said about trying to push a specific agenda, right? Because sometimes people can see through you. Jimmy, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I think when you build the trust with C-suite, one thing one should consider is not taking that trust for granted. And I'm talking from a point of emotional intelligence because, yeah, we have the professional side, but building on that, making sure that you don't take that trust for granted, and you don't you make sure that whatever you do is still in alignment with the organizational or business goals, and you don't overdo things. You don't push, like Wanda said, pushing an agenda that doesn't align with the process or the policies, and um, just making sure you don't break that trust. And
Mm.
because sometimes there are times that I make some decisions and I'm like, oh, am I supposed to inform? I just carry on because I know that we are on the same page. So making sure that you and your C-suite leaders, you're on the same page when you are carrying out you are making a decision, or you are carrying out whatever has been assigned for you to do.
Fantastic. I really like that. Don't take the trust for granted. Okay, so my final question as we wrap up, and it's the same question to both of you. And maybe one, Jimmy, I'll come to you first, and I'll end with Wanda. And that's one piece of advice you would give to women who are on that journey of becoming trusted C-level advisors. What should they be looking out for? What should they be doing now in their careers?
I'll say first and foremost, be yourself. Be self-aware. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are. If your weakness is something that you can build on or develop, then work towards that. And as much as possible, embrace mentoring. Make sure you have mentors. Make sure you have sponsors. So for sponsorship, you have to build that trust. It doesn't start in a day. So build relationships around you. Also attend, Wanda mentioned having women conferences and things like that. So do your research, go for a lot of conferences to build your confidence, and also volunteer for any senior management responsibility. When volunteers there's opportunity to volunteer, make sure you volunteer to create awareness around you. And also, as you are going on the ladder, make sure you give back, because as you are giving back, you are also learning more. So you volunteer for things, you give back, and be yourself, because you have everything within you. You just need to build up that potential to deliver the value that is expected.
Thanks for sharing that, Jimmy. Wanda, what about you?
I think, ultimately being visible in different rooms, on different kind of, in different ways. Also, I think being visible as not just asking the right questions, but being interested enough to come and being a kind of a value, an asset to a meeting or an asset to a team. I think it's something that kind of grows as you become more visible and you continue to grow. And this also comes from what Jumi was saying, mentoring others, being part of a kind of ecosystem, learning yourself, growing as you're progressing. So this is definitely something that can be done. Meaning you can start on something today or this week or next month. You don't necessarily need someone from outside to start on that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies. I think this has been a very interesting conversation, but what I liked is the practicality of it. So a lot of practical examples on how we can build trust. One of the things I'm taking away personally is the idea of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And understanding what each person needs as I'm building out that trust, and also the learning and development curve, right, that is required when dealing with C-level leaders, and being able to ask questions and put yourself in those difficult situations to actually say, I don't know, and learning, right, and finding ways to keep on that learning, but also especially for right now, things. I don't think technology is as encased as it was with things like AI. Everybody needs to have some level of tech literacy, right? With everything that's happening in the world. So actually allowing your passion to fuel your learning development needs, right? But also understanding what C-level executives require, being able to offer value, but also being able to. And Wanda said something really interesting around putting the most important sentence first. The most important sentence first, and just really being able to condense the information I have, and being able to speak to it in a way that understands the importance of what I'm saying and the impact of it for whoever I'm addressing. So lots of great examples, but also be careful not to push your own agenda. Make sure that you're building allyship. There's a lot of things, even though we didn't mention the word networking, but a lot of networking was assumed here, like joining associations, volunteering, showing up, mentoring, making sure that you're also giving back, because as you give back, you learn as well. So it's not just becoming a trusted advisor to the C-suite is not just an upward relationship. It's who you are as a corporate executive, and how you're learning from different angles and being able to pass on that learning, and understanding the impact to the business and communicating that in an efficient way. Thank you so much, ladies. This was such a great conversation. Learned a lot. Thank you to everyone that joined on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Please make sure you reach out to both Wanda and Jumi. Follow their content. They both publish really, really interesting content on LinkedIn. So please make sure you engage with their content, engage with them, ask them questions. They say they keep asking other people questions. Ask them questions as well. Ask them questions as well, especially about what's going on in their industry. Okay. Ladies, do you have any closeouts, anything you'd like to say before we shut down for just a
Thank
minute?
you for being a great moderator of this discussion, Glory. You're the best.
Yeah. Thank you,
Welcome.
Dr. Glory. Thank you for the privilege to share as well. And thanks, Wanda.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Jumi.
All right, everybody. Good night. Ladies, just stay behind for a bit, but everybody else, good night. Please, if you're watching this conversation after it's ended, please give us some feedback. What other topics? We have a full community of amazing female executives who are experts in diverse fields. What would you like to hear from these global thought leaders? What expertise would you like for them to share? Put it in the comments, and you never know, we might just arrange a webinar with these phenomenal ladies answering those questions. Thank you, Dr. Oluwatoyin Smith. She says, great session. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Good night, and speak soon.
Bye, everyone.